Welcome back to Between Two Racks with the Kilo Crew. This week's episode, another installment of Rapid Fire Q&A. So, let's kick it. I wonder if I have with the guest, if I'd ever be able to start an episode without saying those words. It kind of feels like one of those, it doesn't start until those words are said. Yeah. Okay, first question. How do you coach intent during the concentric phase, especially when trying to build true speed strength qualities within a strength session?
Well, go on. So coaching intent, so obviously it helps that you explain the concept to the client first, but then simply changing your tone as you're counting the tempo or using words that reinforce what you're trying to do goes a massive way. So as long as you're using things like drive or power or speed during their concentric and you're saying it in a way that's really enforcing that that's what you're trying to get out, it normally happens on its own without you having to coach it massively. But the biggest thing is set the intention, set the real what you're trying to achieve from that intention with the client, and then just reinforce it each rep, and it normally just does occur.
Yeah, I'm used to hearing, especially you on those things, it's always like speed, like you just use quick, short cues that you emphasize to reinforce the athlete to respond.
There's a drill though that I used in the past. There was this wide receiver I trained that he just had a hard time getting he understood the concept, but he had a hard time applying it. And every rep always looked more like a bodybuilding rep than a IMCA rep. But a drill that I really like is, like Porrick said, you need the verbal cues for sure. But the pause technique for me is really good to teach it at first with people who struggle. So let's say you're doing bench press. I would tell them, okay, go down. Now, once you're in the bottom, pause there for 2 seconds. Take a breather, and now think about squeezing the barbell as hard as you can, keeping your lats tight, your abdominal wall tight, your feet driven down onto the floor. And now, after 2 seconds from that paused position, explode and generate as much speed as you can. So why I like it is now that pause, you're basically creating a precursor to the technique by having them think about it and focus just on that one task and creating enough tension around so that you can really tap into the wide pool of high threshold motor units that you're actually trying to recruit. And if you break it down instead of trying to have them control the descent, and then as they reach their bottom, which they're not used to because they're training at the same time, you tell they need to, now I need to speed up. So I just think that the pause technique at first is just a good precursor to learn that technique.
And another reason why that actually really, really helps is every time you do this with someone, or not every time, but a lot of the times you do this with people, they'll start to try and use the stretch shortening cycle to generate more speed. So you'll see they'll control and then try and bounce out of it. And they're not skilled enough at this time in their training period to actually do that with any level of efficiency. So they just end up ruining their groove, and each rep's going to look different. So using something like a pause would be a great way, just so they are doing it, but doing it in a very repeatable manner that each rep's going to look very similar. So when they do get to the point that they can just do it with a control eccentric or even a fast eccentric, they're going to be in a better position to be able to do it.
Yeah, because the thing to realize with athletes too is they only have a short off season. So even in their GPP, we had to start working on this in their GPP just so they were ready to go all out during the SPP. So that's also something to consider. Even if sometimes while you're trying to train hypertrophy, that pop, that IMC might not have as much impact. Yeah, that's when you want to work it so that by the time you're moving on to the SPP and now speed becomes a relevant component, they nail it,
Next question. should you prioritize workout supplements or basic supplements? I think this person by basic just means like multivitamin, fish oil with clients.
I think it depends on the client, but what I like about the Peri-Workout supplements is that they can feel the difference more. So there's maybe a little bit more buy-in to when you can get them to take like the core supplements. So if you give them something that helps like with performance, if they're taking if their recovery is better because of all that, and it's a good way to also supplement their protein intake around their Peri-Workout, I'll do that first, and then I can start adding some of the basics, because the reality is people don't like taking supplements. Yeah. They don't like taking the pills and stuff. So if you can get more powders in them around the training, it's an easier transition into taking supplements.
I mean, it's really hard because I'm on Alex's side on this, but it is really hard because if you're a novice with very low level of strength, very low level of motor unit activation potential, and you're training twice a week, your output is minimal, then does the Peri-Workout nutrition have much impact on the recovery process, the anabolic response? Man, not really. It's debatable, but at the same time, maybe you're doing it because you're trying to set the tone and create the habit, and then once that trainee is more efficient or the frequency increases, they already have the habit, so now they're going to leverage it. Or maybe their lifestyle is so trash overall that maybe for them, just having base nutrients is a better option, because now you're covering a wider base, or a wider range of basic health markers that are going to be beneficial for their overall health. But the problem with that is, like Alex said, nobody feels a multivitamin, and they're doing this on their own when they're alone, so they might forget all the time. So you know when you give them like a bottle that should last 30 days and you're 4.5 months in and they still haven't finished the bottle, well, they're not taking it consistently. Yeah. So it's hard. I think there's a benefit on both. Mm-hmm. But to me, I would say, though, that I firmly believe in the Peri-Workout window, working with your people, because as the coach, that's what you control the most. And that's what I've done with athletes. And I've seen drastic changes in their performance, their recovery, the amount of size they build, the amount of strength they build by controlling the Peri-Workout window. But then again, I'm talking about people who are training 4 to 6 times a week at high level, and on and on and on. So it's a little different. I think that's one of those where you, as the coach, you have to need to step back and look at what do you think might have the greatest impact on not just helping them, but setting the tone for consistency for the future.
Yeah. To me, this one's always a little bit like the bullshit question. Is it what's more important, diet or training? It's no, it's 100% diet, it's 100% training. It's not 50-50. It's not you have to be all in on both to get the results you want. So it's the same here. What is more important, Peri-Workout or the basic supplements? No, both are extremely important. But you still have to meet the client or where they're at.
What they're willing to do consistently.
Yeah. So do you need to go in with all the bells and whistles of every Peri-Workout thing at the start? Fuck no. Do you need to go in with 20 different pills in the morning? No. You start with very basic things, and then you slowly introduce more as they're willing, they're starting to feel better and they're starting to see results. But yeah, it's not easy because each client's going to be different, each situation is going to be different, but you can't just look at one in isolation and say, okay, no, fuck Peri-Nutrition, I'm just going to give them multivitamin, they're going to be good. No, it's not going to work.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
This reminds me of a post recently in the Continuum where it was asking our opinion, knowing that we come from the Poliquin background, which was very, very supplement forward in terms of how many supplements you were taking. And now us personally and with any clients we work with, it's way more streamlined to the basics because you do need to look at blood tests to really know what's worth taking and what someone needs. And then going back to like the workout or basic supplements, well, if you're also working on a nutrition approach with your clients and you see they're so low in protein every single day and they're still struggling, well, then adding in that post-workout shake, well, at least you're adding in another dose of protein for them. That's like, okay, working towards their protein goal for the day, and they're getting benefit from their training sessions for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. I'm like for if you're lost a little bit in that world and you want to minimize supplement intake and you want big bang for your buck, and you know that you're dealing with a client, a Gen Pop client, that because the main thing you're going to see with regular folks is two things. They rarely eat enough protein and they rarely eat enough fruits and vegetables. So if you want a big bang minimum, well, you do a greens powder in the morning. So you're getting a concentrated dose of fruits and vegetables. You're getting a broad base of vitamins. You're getting some minerals. So it's easy. And then so it has a lot of health benefits and it's covering a decent base. And then have some protein powder post-workout. So at least they're getting a anabolic response. They're getting some of their proteins that I have a hard time taking in a form that's easy to absorb and digest and deal with. So why not? So that to me could be a good, easy middle ground.
I would do I would add a fish oil.
That's what I was going to say. The first one
the first one was like a fish oil.
But that's always hard for people.
I know. I mean, there's good fish oils out there that taste like the ones that we're taking from ATP are pretty good. You can do the liquid. They can just take 1 teaspoon a day. Everyone can take 1 teaspoon. But yeah, fish oil, greens, and protein powder would be my...
Yeah, I mean, these three things.
And you can put it all in one thing. You could do one shake and put all of that in there, too. Like for breakfast, if you're trying to get more protein.
Yeah, but I'd rather they get the protein right after the workout, though. Because they're most likely going to eat breakfast anyways.
Yeah, depends.
But
or eating toast,
But no, we're talking about like minimum requirements. So at least... assuming they're going to eat a breakfast anyways and they might not consume anything post-workout, I'd rather that they have their protein, that whey protein, post-workout, so that at least, yes, we're increasing the total daily amount of protein they're consuming, but we're using it at a time where they might be in a stretch of zero nutrition, so at least we're creating some type of anabolic window.
Yeah.
I need to bring this back to Alex's. You can put fish oil in shakes.
Mm-hmm.
People do that.
That fish oil, it tastes good. You can... I mean,
and then
you for kids, they do it a lot. For kids, they put it in there.
You wouldn't want to do the greens post-workout because the antioxidants and it's going to dampen that cortisol, the stress response that we want. So that's why it'd still be beneficial to break up the two.
But what I like about the greens is like, so you get like you get the minerals. You're gonna get like if it's a good quality, you're gonna get prebiotics. You're gonna get a decent amount of magnesium. Going to get some broad spectrum multivitamins.
And electrolytes, you get some electrolytes in there.
Yeah, so you get magnesium, you get sodium, you get potassium, a decent amount of potassium. Yeah. So, I don't know.
I think it's...
But there's a lot of like shitty greens though.
I think a good approach is you have the workout window and then trying to optimize the morning routine with people. And I'm just saying morning routine is getting a breakfast. And then if you're introducing supplements, morning is a great time to have greens. Take that 1 spoonful of fish oil, and if you can get them to take other like basic supplements, it's still good to do it in the morning. So it's like start with the training session and their morning routine and try to optimize those the most, because for most people those two are consistent. They're the same, like breakfast and then your workout.
But like I love supplements. I think they're like a huge tool you can add to your toolbox. But I think knowing what to take, when to take it, and understanding, like it's like, because it's easy to, like, for example, like if your sleep is disrupted, so what do people do? Oh, my sleep is bad, so I'm going to take sleep supplements right before bed, right? But you need to look at it on a bigger picture. Like why aren't you able to fall asleep at night? Well, is it because you're overthinking and your brain is like in supercharged mode the entire day? Well, if that's the case, then you need to start dampening your brain's response way earlier during the day than right before night. So, I mean, my point with that story is supplements can be quite complicated.
Yeah.
And you need to be kind of really into it to be very efficient with supplements. So that's why I'm all for, at least in the early stages, to focus on the big rocks. And like you said, like that Peri-Workout window in the morning, to me, I think like you can go a long way with that.
Next question. What are your go-to strategies for integrating remedial exercises without disrupting the flow of the main session?
Okay, so
C-series.
that's somebody that's never done one of our education.
First or last?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. Yeah. C-series or A-series. Like if it's a huge weakness, front load them. If not, at the end of the workouts, it doesn't disrupt the remaining. But
like you do see some people use them as like the filler sets in between main exercises. I don't like it. I'm sure neither of you like it either.
It depends. Sometimes it can potentiate the training effect.
Yeah, that's fair. But if it's one of those that it's a staple that you're actually going and trying to build strength and hypertrophy in these musculatures, it most of the time is going to create more of a fatigue, and it's going to impede the main movement. If you're using it as a potentiation and you're leaving reps reserve and you're not really creating a ton of fatigue, yes, it's maybe got a time and a place, but just fitting it into that because there's a longer rest period there, to me, isn't the best decision. I would always either start with it because they're extremely weak and you need to prioritize it, or finish with it because they still need strengthened or they still need addressed at some point within the training program, and that is the best place because they're remedial by nature, so they're very single joint oriented small muscle groups, so they're going to respond better to later on in the session where you don't need as much of a neural input compared to the big compound primary movements.
Yeah.
Just don't skip them. Just do them.
But it's just like sometimes though, like I was saying, there are certain situations where pairing a remedial movement with a big multi-joint movement might be beneficial at optimizing the technique of the primary movements. For example, if you're dealing with someone that's doing back squats and ankle mobility is on the cuff of, it's decent, but it could be a little bit better. Well, you could combine your squat with loaded stretches on the seated calf raise in between sets of squats. So yes, it's remedial, but it won't truly create a fatigue that's going to affect the squat, but it might potentiate more mobility at the ankle to facilitate a better squatting technique. Or if somebody has valgus knees on squatting, you could combine it with monster walk to create some activation so that there's less valgus component when there's things like that,
But as another example, say someone is weak through the posterior chain in the bottom range of the squat. Like it wouldn't be a good opportunity to go and train your seated good morning in between. So like while we consider seated good morning a remedial exercise most of the time, it's time and a place. Like there's certain things that you can address, certain things it's not the place to do it.
Yeah.
Next question. When training advanced lifters, how do you decide when to pull back versus push forward? What markers tell you fatigue? I'm sure they meant fatigue is too much for the lifter.
Well, firstly, we always have them fill out the readiness score. So that is a very easy initial thing. If that is consistently decreasing or consistently low, that is a very good showing that they're either training's too intense, their lifestyle's not meeting their recovery requirements, or there's some other factor that is currently affecting their ability to recover from that training period. Or if their numbers start degressing or stagnating for a period of time, so you just see them like they're no longer able to increase by that 2% per week, and either they're starting to miss reps where they don't normally. Like, it's just being a observant coach and tracking the numbers and just making sure things are moving in the right direction. But the readiness is definitely it's probably the easiest one to keep a track of, because people can miss reps and have bad weeks and be fine and the readiness be good, but the next week they're going to be okay. So it has to be, everything has to be moving in a trend. It can't just be a one-off. It's definitely following trends.
Yeah, it's hard. So I'm with Porik here. That's exactly what I was going to answer. I think that the easiest, most straightforward thing is the readiness and the session rate perceived exertion at the end. If you combine both, it gives you great cues, because like Porik was saying, if your readiness score is low, but your session rate of perceived exertion is high, but this happens not just once, but it's like a consistent thing across the meso, well, you're like, oh, clearly the training is a little too much for that person. Yeah. Now, if the readiness is low and the session rate of perceived exertion is low, well, then it might be a clue that, okay, it might be more the lifestyle that's the issue here. But then sometimes it gets tricky, because when you have like true type A robot type client, okay, like my boy in Oakland, his readiness score is legit almost always 4.2 out of 5, which is really, really high. But because that dude's a robot and he freaking loves it.
Probably answers the same thing every time. He's like, I must feel this.
But he loves it. He feels great. Like, that dude never cheats, takes his supplements, he trains, the whole thing, right? Yeah. But sometimes I need to go steps above to analyze. Yeah. But it's a little bit more complicated, because now I'm like, okay, well, it's almost like the readiness score becomes an irrelevant thing because he's always ready and happy. But that's when now you need to go and look at numbers. And for him, what I notice is eventually you're going to start seeing a trend in either he's plateauing and there won't be any strength increase for one or two mesos, and or sometimes there's a strength decrease. So now in that case, then I'll make adjustment in volume and or frequency to try to see if that's going to have a positive impact on his strength. But it's almost like at his level, he's so mentally excited about training that he bypasses the actual
legitimacy of
the actual stress that the training can. So although the readiness, in my opinion, is the easiest, most straightforward, there's some point in times where you might want to confirm with numbers on top of it.
I mean, I think there's many times where it's a little bit more of getting to know the client mentally, to know how they think about the readiness
but that's also and the just level people of exertion. Who are doing it online, because if you're training someone in person, they're not filling out but
even readiness. In person, so you can watch it in person, but you still need to know, pay attention to that client. Ask the
questions, like when you first see your client, you develop those questions when you first see them. I know a lot of people like to do the whole handshake thing, like if their readiness is ready, if they can give you a good firm handshake, and that doesn't, so it's like their grip strength. But now they also have all the wearables, so that's like a two-edged sword too, because some people will over-analyze their readiness based on their wearables and then psych themselves out and say, I can't train hard today, when they can actually train. So,
one very anecdotal thing I've seen over the years is if someone's readiness is going to be going down, and I normally see it generally in their chin-ups first. It's the one exercise I can see people, they'll drop off in reps or drop off in their chin-up ability. I was like, we're pushing, it's going to have to maybe back off soon. And it generally correlates. It's not all the time. Some people have bad days, but it being such a big compound movement, so grip dependent, there's a lot going on there. I've definitely noticed a trend with chin-ups and people's readiness and recoverability.
That's a great observation, because the chin-up is probably the movement with the least variability, because most people are going to be using their own body weight all the time. So it's always almost that same output. So when you see drops or plateaus, it's very telling of what's going on.
It makes me think, was it this week or last week, Steph? Like you got to the end of your session and you were just tired that day in the gym and you got to rate your session and you were like, it shouldn't be that hard, but it felt hard. And that's what's so hard, because it is, how do you think about the way you exerted yourself in that training session?
Because the session rates of perceived exertion, like it's clear. It says, how did the session feel?
Yeah.
So the session felt like crap, but my training was so whack that I'm like,
but it wasn't hard.
Yeah, like I can't, like I've done such harder workouts in my, but you have to be true to the thing, and I needed to write how I felt that day doing that workout.
And then that's when I said to you, well, I was like, I'm sure that would correlate with your readiness score that day. Yeah. So then that would just be one of those one-off, okay, I see you were less prepared, and then it felt harder.
Yep.
Next question. How do you use work capacity training as a foundation without it bleeding into conditioning or junk volume?
Well, so let's have a discussion on defining work capacity.
Yeah. Didn't we do a whole episode on that?
I don't know.
Yeah, we did.
So doing conditioning or having a lot of aerobic endurance helps to build greater work capacity. But work capacity in the weight room is not necessarily a reflection of your ability in conditioning or aerobic training. What we mean by work capacity in the weight room is the ability to repeat high efforts or high quality high effort training at a adequate frequency over and over and over again, and at adequate volumes. So how do you build work capacity? It's simply through your regular strength training, but starting low and progressively increasing the workload so that you're coaxing the trainee towards higher work capacity. So it's not like we're going to go from 0 to high volume to force feed adaptation to work capacity and then hope that the training is going to deal with it. Yeah. Like you need to build it up.
Yeah, because work capacity, it's more of a description. Like say we're even take it into aerobic work. We don't say you're building work capacity. No, you're building aerobic capacity. You're building repeat sprint ability, whatever way you want to look at it. But work capacity describes the overarching that you're able to complete a lot of whatever said work was in a period of time and then repeat it within over the course of whatever the training week is or whatever way you want to describe that. So it's an overarching description. You never say, all right, we're going and we're sole purpose of this macrocycle is to build work capacity. No, work capacity is going to be a byproduct and a description of the overall training effect.
Yeah. It's just that being a well-conditioned trainee will help you at repeating more work from set to set in session or recovering faster between sessions so you can repeat high quality work later on during the week. So it helps with that. But you could do as much conditioning and cardio as you want if you don't do heavy strength training and build progressive workload with your heavy strength training. Then you're not building work capacity of heavy strength training. Yep. So it really is just a question of you introduce the task, which is strength training, and you progressively increase load and progressively increase volume so that the trainee can adapt and become more efficient at repeating high level tasks over and over at a higher frequency. And then once you're able to recover and generate high output, recover high output, recover high output, then you just see progress really soar.
And then some people are better at like intensity versus volume.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's just something that you get better at in the gym, and then you just keep, building from there.
Yeah, but then eventually you can just like leverage the strength of the trainee as well. So if you're more gifted towards accumulation type work, well, you can spend a little bit more time there.
Porrick, I know in your intermuscular coordination talk, you talked about how you can use the buffers for training intermuscular coordination, but at the same time, the buffers would also be with someone who has good work capacity.
They don't have to have good work capacity. It'll definitely help develop it because you're using incomplete rest and you're completing a lot of work within a somewhat reasonable time frame. So it's not stretched out. So say you're doing 10 or 12 sets, you're still getting that done in that 20 to 25 minutes. So it's not a very long period of time. So you're still getting a lot of work within a reasonable period of time. So it's going to help develop the work capacity. But since it's done at sub-maximal loads, you should be able to do it even if your work capacity is not great.
Okay.
What you're going to find is the people whose work capacity is not great, their last couple of sets are going to be harder than what you'd really want for developing that quality. Okay, that's worth it because it's worth them missing out on a few sets that are developing intermuscular coordination for the development of that work capacity. But once you're at a point that your work capacity is good, you should be going through and your last set looks pretty similar to your first set. Like it's not going to be a huge difference. It's maybe instead of having 3 or 4 reps in reserve, you have 2 to 3. Like it's a very small difference.
Because the thing to understand with buffered sets is in the end, you're still doing the exact same amount of total rep volume. But the main difference, though, is using the buffered sets is you're going to have a higher percentage of these total reps being done at high levels of quality. So it's in a way, it's almost a better way to develop high level strength with people who have worse work capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a way.
Next question. For general population clients, what are the indicators that their movement quality is limiting their progress? And how do you fix it?
Well, the MAP assessment, to be honest. Like, so if you go through a joint by joint assessment of their mobility requirements for basic strength training movements that are at the core of our training, and they showcase a lot of lag in order to access the proper range to do the movements appropriately, well, then you know that it needs to be addressed with their training. So that, to me, it's the cleanest way to see what's missing for the purpose of strength training. Because probably talked about this before, but you can do lane tension tests, but sometimes lane tension test, it's so passive that you don't necessarily see what's going on when they're moving through a true strength training movement. So that's why we prefer, for our context, to test mobility through movements so that now we can see, okay, well, when they're squatting, this happens. So this needs to be addressed with specific exercises or blah, blah, blah. Or we need to readjust the exercise to
like regress the exercise.
Yeah, to fit whatever weakness is going on at the joints that's a limiting factor in that movement.
Yeah, so just to clarify, because some people refer to joint by joint as literally going joint by joint and checking the mobility of each joint. When we say that, we are looking at each joint, but within the movement pattern. And then choosing variations within that movement pattern that's going to eliminate any of the potential issues for certain joints, so we can eliminate that as the potential joint that's causing irregular movement patterns. So if we know if we elevate the heels about 10 to 15 degrees, ankle should no longer be the limiting factor for a squatting pattern. That should be eliminated. Okay, so we put you on a 15-degree wedge, you're still squatting like shit. We know it's not the ankle, it's somewhere else. So we then go through the next steps to figure out where that somewhere else is and then how to address that.
Yeah.
And that's why the MAP assessment is always like without weight. Like we just want to see if they can control their own body weight.
Exactly.
So it's not a strength limitation. It's
Yeah, and then you want to make sure that under load, they're not losing that form as well.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's our opinion that in order to build true resiliency, you should be able to move properly without any external load. Yeah. If you need external load to move properly, there's something missing in your kinetic chain.
The only caveat to that, and we've known from experience in HB, is like the squat, right? Like there are some women who are so weak. I mean, there's some men too that are so weak they can't even squat their own body weight. So that's like, they'd have the mobility for it, but they don't have the strength for it. So you can still see those things when you assess them.
Yeah, but you'll see that though, because like the person who has no strength, you'll tell them to go to the bottom position and they're going to be stuck in the bottom. Then okay, well then we know you just lack strength.
Yep.
Next question. How do you structure volume and intensity for clients who are more stress limited than time limited? So those who they still train often but can't handle high output.
I think we always kind of decrease volume first. Like you want to get as much intensity as you can with them. So even if it's a shorter workout, and then you can build on the volume. It's like basically working that work capacity. So make sure that they can still hit the intensity that you want.
Then there's other modalities that we can train within the gym that don't require as much of a recovery response. So you could say, all right, we're going to get our strength training done, then we're going to address mobility, or we're going to address use
that extra time for
something else. So like things like if someone has a lot of like issues being able to brace under load, okay, we're going to do animal walk variations because you're going to learn how to brace, move your body through space, all while controlling your core and trying to maintain neutral hips and develop these other qualities that if you're just dedicating your whole time to weight training, they somewhat can be neglected. And that's fine is if they're not an issue, but if they're an issue, why not address them? And you could use the additional time that the reduction in volume allows for that. It wouldn't be an issue at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with what they're saying. So if your limitation is stress oriented, then you need to reduce volume, and then you can complement by adding like low stress or a completely different modality like mobility. But the part that's interesting to me is if the client has zero time restriction. Now this is interesting because if it's just a question that after 30 minutes they crash and burn, but they have zero time restriction, because I do train someone online, a coach that I train online so he's in the gym all day, but he, like whenever he has a break, like it's he has a 1 hour window, but it's, it is like you're finishing with your client on the hour. Right. So by the time you get ready and you warm up, then you do your workout, then you want to take your post-workout, then you want to get ready so he probably only has a real 40-minute. So that client, because there's no time restriction, what he does is A series in the AM whenever he has that 1 hour, and then he does his B and C series in the PM whenever he has another 1 hour. So that's great because now each training bout has more average intensity. He has 2 peri-workout nutrition window, so you're actually increasing the anabolic response potential. So that client is able to do the exact amount of total work that was the goal, but we separated it in a way that we're actually optimizing his recovery and fit his work capacity, but at the same time, it might be more time restriction than actual true lack of work capacity. But that's definitely an option that you guys, if you're in this situation with a client, you can actually look into because it works really well.
I've seen a good trainer, and I don't know how it worked out for him, but at one stage, he just, whatever the lift was for the day, so say it was a squat one day and a bench press another day, he loaded warmed up, loaded the barbell that morning. It stayed loaded all day, and every 15-20 minutes he went over, did a set, went back to train his client.
Wow.
And all the clients knew it was part of it, so they're all good with it, but it was just weird. Just one set every like 20 minutes.
That would be tough.
You get a lot of work done.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of, like, I think I've said this before, but when I was at University of Montreal and like all the sprinters were kind of like doing like Charlie Francis type training, and it was like one sprint, then it'd be like lying on their back studying, 20 minutes later another sprint. I mean, I don't know, like I feel like I'm one of those, like I need to be in a flow, like I'd struggle to
do that.
And it's hard to stay warm too, like I feel like do I need to warm up every time I do one?
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to drop all of your questions into the link below. And next week's episode, we have a special guest coming into town. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe. See you next week.